Over the years, I've covered many stories about disappearances, and in some of these cases, it's as if the people just vanished, making some wonder if they got sucked up into a wormhole or a parallel universe. One very strange case of a man just disappearing right into thin air happened in the 1970s. A journalist working for Venezuela's largest newspaper wrote a story about a professor who has been missing for over 40 years. According to this journalist, many eyewitnesses believe that a professor just vanished right before their very eyes. On the day he disappeared, he was seen by many walking towards his car, and on his way to his car, he stopped to chat with a few students and other fellow teachers. Then he was seen getting into his vehicle, but he never drove away. So some students went to go check to see if he was okay, but he wasn't there. He just vanished, and this really freaked them out. Now the police and even private investigators went looking for this professor, but they couldn't find anything. And still to this day, he has never been seen or heard from again, and they haven't found one single clue. Now this article has gotten a lot of attention over the years, but due to the fact that the journalist never released the professor's name, out of respect for the family, some believe that this is a fake story. But the journalist did mention the location of the school, the University of the Andes in Venezuela. So it wouldn't be too hard for any investigator or another journalist to find out if a professor had disappeared there in the 1970s, making me believe that this story must be true, at least in regards to a missing professor. Another strange story happened to a Spanish soldier, Gil Perez, in the 16th century. One day, Gil was on guard duty in the Philippines, and he was very tired as the night before the governor was killed by some Chinese pirates. So this very tired soldier leaned up against a wall and he closed his eyes for a second. And when he opened them, he was at a location he did not recognize. But there were other Spanish guards walking around and they were dressed just like him. So he asked them where he was and they told him that he was in Mexico City, which was impossible. Then he told them what had happened to him and he got arrested. They accused him of either working for the devil or he was a deserter, as he wasn't supposed to be in Mexico City, he was supposed to be in the Philippines. But he denied these accusations. He told them that he had no idea how he got to Mexico City, but they didn't believe him, so they threw him in jail. Then 2 months later, a ship from the Philippines arrived, and they brought the news that the governor of the Philippines was killed by Chinese pirates. Exactly what Mr. Perez told them the day after it happened. And there's just no way that he could have known this unless he was there. As at this time in the 16th century, you couldn't travel from the Philippines to Mexico City in one day. And also, some people on the ship confirmed that Mr. Perez was in fact in the Philippines when the governor was killed by Chinese pirates. So because of these statements, he was released from prison. Now this is a pretty crazy case, although some historians denied that this ever happened. But this was documented in the 17th century. Now whatever the case may be, this story has always made me wonder. A more recent case happened in 2009 when a man named James Richard was driving when he had to stop because his dog needed to go to the bathroom. And while he was outside his car, the dog saw a rabbit, so she, the dog, ran after it, and James followed her. He claims that while he was running after his dog, he tripped and knocked himself unconscious. And when he came to, he found himself in a very strange looking room next to a very odd looking machine. And there was a guy just staring at him. He told James that his name was Jonas. Then Jonas told him that he was from another dimension, and in his dimension there was something called trans-dimensional tourism. They've been doing it for thousands of years. But it's very dangerous. Sometimes people would land on train tracks, fall off cliffs, land in front of cars, etc. So it was very risky. But nevertheless, people still do it, and that is how Jonas found James passed out in the field. And he decided to take him back to his world so he can bandage his head. Now they walked and talked for a good while, and James noticed the differences. He stated that their world was more advanced and looked kinda sci-fi-ish. And there's also other differences, such as the ketchup was purple. But one thing that shocked him the most is that this time in this parallel universe, the Beatles were still together. They never broke up. And before Jonas brought him back, he saw a Beatles tape from his room that never existed in our Earth, and it was called Everyday Chemistry. Now this story really blew up, and this is the only case, well at least that I know of, where a person claims that he traveled to a parallel universe and brought back actual evidence, and people are still debating this to this very day. Now most believe that James is a liar and that this tape is just a mashup of old songs, but this still hasn't been proven, which is kind of shocking, and I will put a link to the album in the description below. Now this is a very interesting case, and I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? Do you think that James is telling the truth? Or do you think that he's nothing more than a clever hoaxer? Until next time, this is Paranormal Junkie. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned.